What happens when you have a horizontal shooter with deadly giant musical notes? Find out as we take a look at Otocky for the Famicom Disc System on Retro Video Games for Weirdos. Hello to all you wonderful weirdos out there, and welcome to Retro Video Games for Weirdos. This time, we'll be taking a look at a weird, music-themed shooter that never made it out of Japan, Otocky. Otocky was released for the Famicom Disc System in March of 1987. The Famicom Disc System was an add-on that Nintendo made for the Famicom, which was the Japanese version of the NES. As the name implies, this add-on allowed the Famicom to play games from floppy disks. The floppy disks used by the Famicom Disk System were 3 inches wide, which was a tad bit smaller than the 3.5-inch disks that became frequently used on home computers. These disks could store up to 112 kilobytes. This was far more than what the Famicom and NES game cartridges could store at the time. They were limited to 40 kilobytes. However, the disk system never left Japan. So why didn't we get a disk system for the NES here in the US? Well, it turns out there's a way to work around that 40 kilobyte limit on game cartridges. Around the time Otocky was released, we started seeing the introduction of mapper chips installed in game cartridges, and these allow the NES and Famicom systems to access data well above that 40 kilobyte limit. In April of 1987, game cartridges started coming out with the MMC1 mapper chip, and it expanded the maximum size of the cartridges up to 384 kilobytes, well above the amount of data that could fit on the discs for the Famicom Disk System. Some of the games that were originally released for the Famicom Disk System did make their way onto the NES as game cartridges with mapper chips. The Legend of Zelda is the most notable example of a game that first appeared on the Famicom Disk System and then later got ported to cartridge with the help of the MMC1 mapper chip. Sadly, Otocky never got ported to cartridge and remained a disc-only release. That's a shame, as Otocky is a very unique game. The main mode of the game has you piloting this little guy through scrolling horizontal stages. Your main weapon consists of a ball that you shoot out and comes back to you. When you press the fire button, it shoots out the ball in tempo with the background music, and it plays a musical note that has a pitch based on which direction you fired the ball. This makes it feel like the music to the game is interactive in a way that you don't normally see with shooters. Throughout the game, you can collect power-ups that will change which instrument plays when the ball is fired. Some power-ups will also add a secondary fire option, which does a spread shot that can help take out the enemies that can hurt you. There is no life bar in the game, but you can determine the health of your character by looking at the size of the ball for your main attack. When you first start out, the ball is quite large, but each time you take a hit from an enemy, the ball gets smaller and smaller. Once it gets to the smallest size, one more hit will result in a game over. To make it to the end boss, you have to collect the music notes hidden throughout the stage while avoiding enemies. Once you've filled the bar at the bottom of the screen with music notes, you'll get warped to the boss at the end of the stage, which will be some sort of giant musical note or other musical notation. Because the interaction between music and gameplay is so unique with this game, it's really fun to fool around and figure out kind of sounds and music you can make with it. Which is why the makers of this game decided to include 2 unlockable game modes. The BGM mode is unlocked every time you complete a level. This lets you fly around the stage without enemies and manually select which instrument is played when the ball is used. The Music Maker mode is unlocked when all of the stages are beaten. It will let you compose music with multiple audio tracks. Unfortunately, this game does not appear to have gotten a modern re-release. I hope at some point it does, because the musical aspects of this game provide a fun twist to the shooter genre.